If you enjoyed today's video, please consider subscribing to the channel. When you do, make sure you hit the notification bell. That means that you will be informed of when a new video has been released. If you would like to take that support one step further, you can do that via Patreon, which is an optional monthly service. You can donate money towards the channel, or you can go over to Ko-fi.com, and for the price of a coffee you can help donate towards the channel as well. Links for all of those will be in the description of the video, and without further ado, enjoy the video.
Nathan, you ready as well?
Yeah, all good.
Good man. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happen to be watching and listening to another episode of the Non League Nosh podcast. I am James, and you'll be able to see that I'm not joined by Adam, the normal co-host that comes along on the show. It's his first day back at work, and it's just been absolutely manic from his perspective, so he's decided to have a night in. We'll allow it. We'll allow it this time. So we have got my co-host, just to make things even more awkward, another James Bloomfield. You know him from Coaching 101. James, how you doing, mate? You well?
Very good. Another normal, bog standard lockdown day. Try to get out in the garden a bit. Try and enjoy it, actually, the most I can. And yeah, all good. You?
Well, apparently from Wednesday it's supposed to start going a bit downhill weather-wise. So you've really got to take advantage of it. But yes, I'm doing well. Son is having a really good day. We're reaching all of these kind of milestones, which, as a plus of everything that's going on, I'm actually at home and able to witness everything that's going on. So we had, rolling over for the first time was amazing. He's now starting to use his knees. He's now starting to get up a little bit more, which is great. Eating solid foods. He's moved into his own room and he's in his own bed. And we had the first night of that and plenty of tears and stuff like that. It was, it's all been chaotic, but yeah, it's
mixed emotions.
Yes, it was very mixed emotions. A lot of tears from my end. I'm not even going to try and deny that. It was very teary, but yeah, it's as I said, one of the advantages of being in lockdown, that get more time to spend at home with the loved ones. But James, we are not alone, and everyone who is watching this video from a YouTube perspective will be able to see that to my left we have got former professional footballer and current non-league assistant manager, Nathan Elder, in the building. Nathan, how are you? You well?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. But
no
yeah, doing well. Just getting through it. Probably not as much as you are at the minute, by the sounds of it. But yeah, doing all right.
How have you adjusted to life in lockdown? Obviously, I know certain restrictions were eased today. At the point of recording this, I believe it's Monday. I'm not really sure at the moment, but yeah, the rules have eased ever so slightly. But how have you found it? How have you been adjusting to life at home?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, not too bad. I mean, the thing is, I was quite ill at the beginning. I think I caught it quite early, so that affected me quite a lot.
Right.
I was probably out of it for a solid 2 weeks. I was in hospital for a little while. And then, once I came out, 5 days later, completely fine, completely better. And
really?
Then since then, it's kind of the same as you, really. I don't think we're ever going to get this sort of time again. So I've just been spending a lot of time with the kids, a lot of time with the family as well. I'm able to work from home, so that was a lot easier. I'm missing football a lot, of course, but I suppose it's one of those ones. I suppose you have to just take advantage as well, and spend as much time with the kids as you can.
Yeah, definitely. I think I had it as well right at the very beginning, before kind of lockdown even was thought about. Maybe 3 weeks or so before that, I just remember it completely knocked me out. I felt horrible. I couldn't get out of bed. Work would just, oh yeah, it's a standard flu. And I was like, no, this is not a flu. I've never had anything like this before in my life. This is not flu. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to hear that you went through something similar with it. It's horrible, isn't it?
Oh, it's awful. And I think when you've had it yourself as well, you realise that if you are if you're elderly, or if you've got an underlying problem as well, how difficult it probably is to fight off. Because I like to think I'm quite fit, youngish, and quite healthy as well. I eat the right things. I gym probably about 4 or 5 times a week, as well as obviously with the training at football as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, when it hit me, I was horrendous. Couldn't eat anything. Even walking upstairs, I was getting tired walking up the stairs.
Yeah.
it was just all a bit mad. So yeah, you can understand, unfortunately, obviously with the the things going on at the minute, how tough it must be if you're in a care home, for instance, or if you've been in hospital for quite a while. So
yeah, definitely. But you mentioned you're able to work from home, which is good. I suppose that's a plus. I don't know about you, James. So what with your work, have you been able to kind of work from home? Because I haven't. I was made furloughed straight away. I think I did a week's worth at home, and they were just like, "There's no work for you. We can't keep you on."
Yeah, my work's in a gym, so understandably I can't do an awful lot. So I've got literally the social media side of it, and like we've got the personal trainers doing home workouts and stuff. So I'm editing that and chopping it and getting it out there. So we're trying to stay active and do as much as we can, like different bits in the community and stuff. But it's not normal, is it? It's not work. It's not getting out and traveling down to your gym or wherever you're working. Yeah. So yeah, a bit different, but doing them as much as we can, like you two.
Definitely. How have you found working from home, Nathan? Has it been all right?
So a lot of my work's done on the laptop now. I mean, I've got a job in the city, and I'm a manager at a recruitment company now. So we work with a lot of special needs schools at the moment. So a lot of special needs schools are actually open back up because of the nature of the pupils. They need to be back in school and things like that. But I've got a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old. So you can imagine, when you're sitting there doing work and my daughter comes in and she's like, "Can you put something on the TV? Can you do this? Can you do that?" So I suppose it's just been difficult trying to divide having your house as a place to relax and your work area as a place to work. You kind of have to mould those two in together, which is not easy, but you just have to kind of just get through it, I suppose, which is kind of where we're at.
I have to admit, even if I was only doing it for a week, I found it really difficult just knowing that my little boy was in the next room. I just found it really difficult. Every time I could hear him cry, and I was like, I really want to go and check he's all right. Whereas when you're at work, completely separated from that, you kind of switch off mentally. But yeah, I had my own room designated, had it all set up, and then within a week, I was like, no, not needed anymore.
Not as easy.
That's it. But we always start off these podcasts, Nathan, by doing some quick fire questions just to get you into the groove of this. And James is already smiling because he knows the questions that are coming up.
All right.
Here we go. Let's do it. Chinese or Indian?
Indian.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Good man. You redeemed yourself on that one.
That's
well done. Well done. I'm drinking a coffee right now, so happy days. Favourite biscuit to dunk?
Favourite biscuit to dunk? See, do you know what? I'm actually quite partial to a custard cream.
Yes. Yeah, good call. That's my other half's go-to. See, we get the hard-hitting questions on the non-league Nosh. We go right in. Favourite alcoholic drink, if you have one?
Yeah, I do like a glass of rum. Bit of rum for me.
Yeah?
I'm a man, yeah.
Good shout. Instagram or Twitter?
Ooh. They've both got different uses for me, but I'd probably say Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James, what are you saying? Because I haven't actually asked you this one yet.
Do you know I'm not very active on there. I hardly use it to post my own stuff, but I probably click on that more than I do Twitter. Just scroll through. Like people do generally update it quite often, so I'll probably spend more time on Instagram.
To be honest, without football, Twitter's just turned into a political minefield at the moment. It's not worth going on there half the time. It's just chaos, utter chaos. Your favourite type of music?
See, I'm quite eclectic in that sense. My dad's always been a person who's played different types of music from when I was young. So my favourite type would probably be, I do like a bit of house music. Actually.
Good call. Your favourite box set? What's your favourite TV programme of all time?
Oh, that's a great question. Tell you what, I really enjoyed The Wire.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with The Wire for this one because I've watched it 3 times, so it can't be that bad if you go for it that amount of time. So
winner.
See, that's Adam's favourite show. So if he was here, we'd be going off into like a 10-15 minute tangent of all the episodes of it. So actually, to be honest, I'm quite glad he's not here because we're taking so much time. Yeah. Your favourite film?
Fight Club.
What, you didn't even have to think about that. Straight in.
I think, do you know what? I've watched it so many times because I first watched it when I was playing football professionally, so where you've got time to kind of dissect things. And I think I watched it probably 3 times in a week. And in that week, I remember I saw something I hadn't seen the last time I watched it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it kind of opened my mind to it a little bit of probably how intricate the film was. So for me, I'll probably quite an influence on that one, Fight Club.
I always do that.
Crazy.
I do that. I must do that with every film. I'm not even joking. Really? I probably watch every film the first time. Like, I'm not that into films, I'll be honest. So probably when I watch a film, I'm half concentrating on it, and the second time, some things are funny. Like there's really funny things or really interesting things. You think that was not there last time.
Yeah,
I know it wasn't.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I was like that with Game of Thrones. To be fair, had to watch it like 4 times over just to kind of get every drop of every episode out of it. So yeah, now I get that. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Phew.
Straight.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think. To be honest, we've only had one person who said cats so far, so I might scrap that question from this one because it's a bit of an obvious answer.
They're just horrible. I hate them.
Yeah, that one person that said cats, well, you might have to review who they are as human beings.
Well, would it surprise you, Nathan, if I said it was a referee?
No.
Wow. There's an awful lot.
There you go. Other than football, what's your favourite sport?
Not just saying it, but basketball. I'm into basketball. Yeah. I've got more into American football at the moment as well, but I've always been. My dad's 6'6", and he used to play basketball when we was younger. Right. So he used to play for a team in London. I used to go and watch. So I've always been interested in it, but I wasn't great at it. I was all right, but I was never great at it.
I've got to ask you, as a Dolphins fan, who's your team?
Yeah, do you know, it's weird. So the club, obviously, Hive one with now, and my manager, Stephen Watt, he absolutely loves American football, and obviously traveling to games with him every Saturday, and obviously it's training and stuff. We used to have conversations about it, and he got me into like a couple of the box sets and stuff on a couple of the Netflix series.
Yeah.
Next thing I knew, I'm watching Last Chance U again. I'm watching, all these different things on NFL and American football. And I've realised, wait a minute, I'm actually quite into this now.
Yeah.
And so I can't say I've got a specific team. I can't, be like a bit of a glory hunter or anything. But the interest has definitely gone up in the past 6 months, without a doubt.
I think I'll say it to everyone, and James, I can see you going, no, not a chance. But once you pick a team, honestly, once you've got a team, you get so heavily invested in it, you can't stop. But I suppose
Adam, if you carry on like this a little bit, then I'm going to get there. That's how Nathan started by the sound of it. He had a bit of this in the car journeys, all these long drives, and in the end it rubbed off. So
it pushes you, yeah. I've definitely started. I've definitely become that person who's looking into American football a lot more than I used to, without a doubt.
I think it's just an appreciation of what the actual athletes go through, because it's such a physically demanding sport, and mentally it probably drains you more than most sports out there. So yeah, just a definite appreciation. FIFA or Football Manager?
FIFA.
Oh.
FIFA, FIFA for me. It's always FIFA. Do you know why? Because I have a bit of a ongoing feud with my little brother that I have done for a solid 8 to 10 years, where every weekend that I'm over for a family dinner or something, we'll have one game that turns into best of 3, which turns into best of 5. And it just, he's young, obviously he's younger than me, he wants to beat his older brother, and it's just been continuous. So, I've got to probably go for FIFA on that one.
Yeah, you got to get practicing, really, ain't you?
I have to, yeah. I can't, until, I'm in an old people's home, I can't let him defeat me. That's just, it doesn't make viable sense, I don't think. So,
yeah. Who's better out of the two of you?
Do you know
honestly?
I used to be, but now what's happened is, because I'm a dad and I'm looking after the kids all the time, he's practicing while
too much.
He's practicing too much. And I played him last time, and he clean sweeped me for the first time ever. And I realised, you know what, I need to just probably buy a bigger house, get a room done, and just
he's going to love this. He's going to absolutely love this.
I can't let this stuff happen. It's just not fair. It's not right.
We'll go on to a couple of quick-fire football ones, and then we'll move on. So who do you support? Who's your team?
I'm an Arsenal fan.
Yeah?
Yeah, sorry.
I'm a Norwich fan, so don't worry about it. You're absolutely fine.
You can't argue.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, of course you are as well, aren't you, James? Yeah, of course you are. Yeah, Why did that skip my mind? we bait Adam all the time. Adam,
Listen, we all support good footballing sides in this room, so we're all fine.
Let's leave it there. That's fine.
Your favourite player growing up?
It was always that. You know, I went through kind of different eras. I went through a bit of an era watching Andy Cole and Dwight York partnership up top.
Yeah,
just loved it. But then at the same time, in terms of an individual, Thierry Henry for me as a youngster was insane, but also Ian Wright when he was younger as well. So, it's hard to pinpoint just one, but if it's going to be anyone, it'll probably be Henry. To be fair,
yeah, it's a good shout. Best player you've seen live. We'll end on that one.
Best player I've seen live would be Ronaldo. Probably the best player I've seen live. I've not seen speed with a ball like it. Still, the pace, running at full pace with the ball that close to your feet was still. I think so. If people don't really know about football, there's a big difference between sprinting with a football. And he was probably the first person I actually watched run down the line with the ball at his feet, and it didn't really get away from him. He kept it so close, and I just couldn't really understand how you have such a light touch but you're that quick. And it is. Yeah, that was just one thing for me. It just blew my mind a little bit, I think.
So just to clarify, we are talking about CR7, yeah?
CR7.
Okay.
Yeah, CR7. Sorry, yeah, not R9, CR7.
No, to be honest, I saw Ronaldo when he came. James, I don't know if you were at this game as well, but when we beat Man United 2-0, this was in the early days.
When was that?
Oh, God, Jesus, this was like 2003, 2004. This is like Ronaldo's early days when he was still doing all the step overs, and like obviously he cut the majority of that stuff out very quickly. But I never got to see him in his prime.
Stride.
So, I wish I'd have been able to see him like a couple of years down the line, but Norwich could never stay in the Premier League for me to be able to do that, to be honest. So there we go. Good answers in there. Absolutely love some of those. As I said, you redeemed yourself on the coffee one right from the get-go. So we'll continue with the podcast. It's fine. It's all good. So before we kind of get into your career and kind of work, the progress that you had going up the sort of pyramids and in non-league, etc. Just want to briefly get your kind of thoughts on what is going on with football at the moment. I know it's such a varied question to ask, but with the different levels of the game, some of it's stopping entirely, some of it's stopping, but then promotions are still being going on, and then Premier League and Championship still kind of up in the air. I suppose really from a non-league perspective, obviously you are involved at a club at the moment. What do you kind of make of the decision to null and void non-league football? Let's start off with that first of all.
I would agree with it. I think it's the thing with the non-league side of things is obviously I'm looking at the money side as well. I understand, clubs that go up, they've then got a certain expectation to stay up, and budgets aren't anywhere near looking after clubs the way that I think they should be. But then at the same time, some gate receipts are what keeps the club open and what keeps the club going. So although for me, I completely agree, null and void the season, start afresh. No one goes up, no one goes down, and you kind of just void it. I don't see anything wrong with that. But then it's so easy for me to say that because we finished just above mid-table, when realistically, if we were third, would I be saying the same sort of thing? I think I have to be open-minded to those clubs that did do really well and got into the playoff spots. But I think really, for me personally, if I'm going to be honest, especially because where obviously the club is now, I would say null and void it and start afresh. I just think it's the most logical thing to do.
I think because that's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you that question, because the kind of non-league guests that we've had on the show have predominantly been involved in promotion battles. Now, Adam, who is normally the co-host on here, he's at Stowmarket. They are top of their division by a country mile. They are going to win the league. There's no question about that. And for them, they're one of those clubs that have now submitted another appeal to go and get, to try and fight this from a legal perspective. To be honest, I don't think anything's going to happen from it. I think once the FA have made their mind up, that's it, done. There's no point. But yeah, it was interesting just to kind of ask you that, because as I said, the club that you're at are very much just, as you said, above mid-table. So from your perspective, if there was anything that would say, right, let's start the season off again, you're kind of in that position where a lot of people are saying, what's the point of us taking a risk whilst things are still as they are?
Yeah, completely. And that's the thing. It's such a weird thing that's happened, where something has literally brought the world to a standstill.
Yeah.
You want to believe that in the future we're going to be better prepared, so to speak. I think we're them kind of moving from football into a political side of conversation, but I do think you like to think that after this kind of happens, the country is going to be better prepared for something, and hopefully, touch wood, this never happens again.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, what do you do with the last 4 or 5 months that have literally been wiped off, that you can't do anything with? I think I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet at the minute with with how it is to be a footballer at the moment. I think a lot of fans probably don't realise, a lot of people that I know that are in the pro game are in some real trouble at the moment, because if they're out of contract but they haven't been able to showcase what they've been doing the last couple of months, and you're trying to find a new club, it's going to be really, really difficult. For some players, they're going to end up dropping out of league football. And that kind of transition for me, dropping out of league football into non-league, was a real shell shock. I wasn't mentally prepared for kind of what was going to happen, and I do feel sorry for a lot of players that have literally moved up and down the country to be told. I know a couple of boys at Colchester that were kind of told, look, we're going to release you. Yeah. And they can't train with any other team. They can't sign really at any other team, because teams don't know what their budget's going to be. And
exactly,
it's real for footballers in general. I think it's a real tough time for them. And
because I think that is a very good point, because most people, like, when they look at football, they think of the Premier League and maybe the Championship, and a lot of those guys have the resources to be able to survive until this kind of picks up. But like you said, League One and below, unless the testing is in place that is going to be in place, like they're trying to get the Premier League sorted out, which realistically clubs can't afford to pay for that testing. The Football League's not going to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's all well and good deciding promotions and relegations, etc., but ultimately you can't kick a ball until you're guaranteed that everyone's going to be okay.
Absolutely.
So you are 100% spot on where you say that for a lot of players, who
tough times, real tough times.
Because they're not on the hundreds of thousands that a lot of these players are at the top.
Yeah.
They've still got mortgages and stuff to pay, so it's difficult, isn't it? Really.
It really is. It really is, and it's such a shame, because I think at the moment, how do they get supported? How do you support someone who's blatantly out of contracts, maybe on even if you was to look at it, 400 or 500 quid a week, and they budget everything that they, the house, the car, the kids, the wife and stuff. That to us, we probably take for granted a little bit, because we're in jobs that we don't need a contract. We're sorted. My job, for instance, I've been there for years now, and I'm sure, touch wood, I'll be there for another few years. You don't need to look that further forward, but this is kind of really taken out of a lot of people.
Yeah. Because I suppose, again, like a lot of non-league players, the majority of non-league players will not be using the football wages as their primary source of income. So you would like to think that they would be in some sort of job that can cover them. But those guys are right in the middle.
Yep.
Where do they turn to? I mean, maybe the PFA might be able to help. I don't know what kind of powers they have. Obviously I'm not involved in the game, at that level. I don't know what they would realistically can do.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the best example of this is the conference, because the conference is a group of teams that realistically, a lot of them have now turned full time to compete the way they want to compete. But with that, they then have to pay the wages that people can live on a full-time wage. You're out of contract at a conference club and you haven't got a job supporting you in the backup. I don't know what happens, I don't know where it goes. And that's, I think that's one thing probably us as fans need to remember, that when your club is going to try and build once this is all over, there's going to be a lot of free agents and there's going to be a lot of players that are going to be then trying to recoup money that, maybe they didn't have before.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose one question. Sorry, go on, James. You were gonna.
No, I was just gonna say, like, if you just take away, there's a lot of clubs that it's nothing hidden. The fact that some clubs struggle and they are being run in a way that is maybe a bit unsustainable, and they have those. I don't even need to mention the clubs that have trouble anyway, or maybe, let's be honest, aren't being run in the way they should be. The really well-run clubs, they're the ones I really feel sorry for. Like you mentioned the players, I feel sorry for the players. Of course I do, 100%. I think that's probably at the top of the importance list. But also the football clubs that are really well-run, they're going to budget for staying in the league. Like if you talk about, we hear Stuart Webber talking about Norwich, for example. I hate to keep, I'll do this every podcast, I think, mention Norwich somewhere.
You don't
but
hate
I know they're really, I know the way they run at the minute. Last year, for example, they budgeted for staying in the league, budgeted for promotion, and budgeted for, if the worst happened, they went down, and they would have done the same this year. And a lot of clubs will budget for going up, budget for. It's really that football's really in depth, and there'll be clubs that are really well run and done everything the right way, and then all of a sudden this comes along, and that sort of wasn't budgeted for. So although you've done everything to the book, you've done everything perfect, you've now got to let players down. You've got to, you know what I mean, and maybe struggle, and you never know. It's quite scary times for that.
Yeah, it really is. Really is.
You just don't know how many clubs actually at the end of this are actually going to survive. Really, like I said, the League One and League Two clubs are the ones I worry about, really, and maybe the National League as well, because a lot of those guys, without the incomes, realistically, that they are spending just to kind of keep even, or maybe just about make a little bit of a loss. I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? Really, really is difficult. But yeah, I said it was just interesting to kind of get your thoughts kind of on that topic. So cheers, appreciate that one. Right, let's get into talking about your journey into football. I want to go right back to the very beginning, before the transfers started happening. What level of the game were you playing at before you remember kind of going to your first club, so to speak, in non-league football? So were you at like a school level? When did the enjoyment of football first start?
So I remember being in junior school, actually, and I weren't really that interested in football. I think it was just, my dad was a bit of a businessman, so the sports side, never really affected us as a family. I haven't got any family members that played football or played any big sports or anything like that. Obviously, my dad, like I was saying, when we were really young, played basketball, but not really anything else. And I remember in junior school, because I was one of the tallest in junior school, one of the guys that I used to, kick around with in the school playground said to me, "Oh, you should come play for my dad's team." And
right.
So I was like, yeah, it's all right. It's a good way to make new friends and stuff like that. So, I kind of convinced my dad to take me down there, and I was 100% the biggest one there, without a shadow of a doubt. I remember looking and I was thinking, am I with the right age group? And I was, and some of them were a little bit older, and because obviously I was tall and I was quite big, he said, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to put you in centre back in defence." And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And he said, basically, just when it comes to, just head it away, just try and make sure no one scores. And I was like, "Yeah, no worries." And literally for 3 years, all I did was get the ball, kick it over everybody, run onto it, and then score. So I think I was like scorer 3 years in a row from centre back, and it was just.
Wow.
Like it was just silly. Like it was just physique and just a lot of willingness to kind of get onto everything that was there. And just as I got older, I just I wasn't skillful. I was very raw when I was younger. I was quite quick because I was quite skinny, so I was quite quick. But I was just very raw. And then I remember probably my first men's team was playing for Hornchurch.
Right.
I was at Hornchurch probably when I was about 15, and I'm playing with like 30-year-olds, 25 to 30-year-olds. and that was like my first real taste of what men's football was.
So you were thrust in right at that age as well, like straight away.
Yeah. So my family live in Hornchurch, so I could literally walk to the stadium.
Right.
And,
Okay.
you know, I remember I kind of went for some like trials or something just in the summer and played a few like reserve games and stuff. And the manager was straight off like, "Oh yeah, come play for the first team. We'll give you like 50 quid or something." Really wasn't much, but to me back then, at like 15, 16, I was like, yeah, 50 quid, bam.
Happy days, yeah.
Buy some sweets from the shop with that. I was happy days, isn't it? And yeah, kind of just got thrusted into it. And I remember training with them, and I was like, this is weird. I was just so young. But that's probably where I learned about banter, and you know, I think they used to absolutely rinse me for my left foot being terrible, and I worked on it. I was there, and you know, that was my first real taste of men's football over at Hornchurch.
Do you remember your first game at that level? Obviously, being at 15 years old, that must have been what were your kind of emotions like at the time? That must have been quite daunting. I mean, I remember myself at 15, I'd have been bricking it.
Yeah. Do you know what it was? It was, I remember the first game I played. I can't remember how it went or anything like that, but I do remember coming off the bench, and then we got obviously our local newspaper. It's like a small town, whatever it is. And you know, someone called me and said, "Oh, go and check out the recorder, like the paper." So I went to the newsagents down the road, and lo and behold, at the back, you know, they've got the full sports page, and then like my name, it was just my name was just mentioned in the back, and I was like, wow. I was like, I am famous. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Like, it was just crazy. And then as I got more into it and started scoring goals, then the pictures went in there, and then my mum was cutting them out, the newspaper clippings, and that's kind of when I was like, okay, do you know what? Yeah, let's have a good go at this and see what I can do. And yeah, I think just literally from there, I think my mum still got that little scrapbook with all the, you know, the newspaper clippings, as most mums do. And yeah, I remember that's kind of when I took it seriously, I think.
Okay, so that was like your first real, okay, this is something I could actually do for a living.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So from then, if I've got this correctly, you went over to, what was it, Barking in East Ham, and then we got a move to Avery as well. Is that right?
Yeah, floated around. I literally was at Barking just for a mate asked me for a favour, and I was like, yeah, I'll come over for a little bit, and then realised that not driving and having to travel to Barking was not great, and then kind of just literally travelled around a few local clubs. So the Averleys, the Billericay's, went back to Hornchurch for a little bit, and then Averley was a good time. I had a bit of a crazy manager, but he was a good lad. It's just non-league as non-league is.
Yeah.
And that's when I then went over to Billericay, and I was at Billericay for a couple of years.
Yeah, the Billericay was where you, you got noticed, didn't you? That was when, you know, clubs started, so I suppose, sort of sniffing around at the time. Do you think having those moves around and being a part of different dressing rooms at such an early age, do you think that kind of helped your development right from the get-go, rather than, say, for example, maybe being in an academy system or just being at one club, all, you know, right up until your big move? Were those moves kind of, you know, instrumental for you?
Well, I think it's weird because at the age I was at, I was still liking to go out, and you know, I got my first taste of being in nightclubs, and you know, as a young man as well, girls, and you know, it's just kind of you're growing up and you're trying to mature at the same time, sort of thing. So I probably, even though I kind of like knew that, you know, it was good to take it seriously and, you know, pick up an envelope and get your picture in the back of the paper and try and get as many man of the matches as you possibly could. I still think I had a lot to go, but I had
Mm.
my manager at Billericay was a guy called Justin Edinburgh. He was obviously managing Leyton Orient, and he put a lot of time and effort into making me mature a little bit more, doing the right things in the right areas. I think that was a big thing. I mean, before that, I probably was just using all manager, just running all over the place and just trying to just get the ball from anywhere rather than focusing on being a striker. I was just that young guy that just ran all the time. And
so he was the first one to kind of put his arm around you and sort of try to coach you rather than manage, so to speak.
100%. Like, I think, without being disrespectful to the other clubs I was with, they were all non-league managers, and part of that was more results driven than kind of the coaching role sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where with him, he was, I remember like one of the first times he introduced me to Razor Ruddock, because they were his best friends, and he brought him down and he said like, this kid here, he's going to be the next best thing. We just need to work on this, and that. Saying that sentence kind of made me think, okay, cool. So I've got to work on this, and this, and pre-seasons. We've done a lot of work, loads and loads of work, even to the points of like, being a striker, but I couldn't cross the ball because I was so erratic when I got out to the wide areas, because I always wanted to be in the box, that I made wrong decisions. I remember I won't forget, we did like 3 or 4 sessions after training where I would run down the line and then cross the ball, and the technique behind it and things like that. And there was no manager I'd had previous to that was putting that sort of time in, putting that sort of effort in. So, I think without a doubt, I'm glad I've crossed paths with him, and he helped me out a lot.
Because that's more your area, isn't it, James? You're a coach in non-league at the moment.
I was gonna say, how was Justin Edinburgh? You see a lot about him as a person. I think, especially at Leyton Orient, that's the biggest message that sort I see portrayed. How was he back then? Because obviously there was some time in between that. So as on a human level, how was he to you, towards yourself and the squad?
Yeah, he was outstanding, because I think the thing about him was, as a manager who's played at technically the highest level, isn't it? Because obviously where he was at Tottenham. Yeah. When he was at Tottenham, you can just tell that in the dressing room he was just full of a laugh and banter, and he was one of the lads, to be completely honest. Yeah. And he brought that into his management. There was no need for him to get really annoyed if he trusted you to do a job. There was no need for him to be shouting from the sideline and effing and blinding, because he trusted you to do a job. And that's kind of the way that he worked. If you're not going to do the job right, I can get someone else that's going to do the job right, but I want you to be the person to do it right. And, he got a really good squad together, and, I thought he was great. I thought he was really, really good as a person. He'd put your arm around you when you needed it, but he'd also say to you, look, I need more from you if you needed more, and that's, I think personally for me, I think, that kind of management style works, and that's something I definitely want to adopt.
Do you think that got more out of you as a person during that spell? Do you think that gave you the extra bit sort of in the back of your mind that I know I'm playing for a good coach and he's coached me well, but I'm playing for somebody that sort of in my heart, I want to do well for him as such?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think a lot of the time, 17, 18, 19, I would go out on a Friday night for, drinks, or like with a mate, or go to a house party or something, get up and go football Saturday and do okay, but it was like when I was playing for him, I didn't really want to go out on a Friday. I knew I thought to myself, okay, cool, you're going to pick up some money on Saturday and you're going to play a game and you're going to score and you're going to do this. But I was thinking, actually, I want to be bright and fresh. I don't want to give him any excuses to let him down. And he was a manager you don't want to let down. And I think even if you look at kind of how his career's gone, obviously, God rest his soul, but I think a lot of the players that crossed paths with him felt exactly the same. Didn't want to let him down. And I think that's a lasting impression and a credit to himself for the way that he managed.
I think that's very evident from what we've heard from, and what we've seen. You mentioned it, James, the time at Leyton Orient, the documentaries that have come out and video clips have come out of his speeches during the game, during half times and full times and stuff like that. He was, like you said, he sounded like the kind of person you didn't want to let down. It just, I think, from the level of the game that he was at, he could have very easily come down to that sort of level. And we've seen it with managers who have been at the top and get so frustrated that people can't perform to the level that they have been at. And it can very much easily go the other way, where they just start getting angry and frustrated and stuff like that. Classic example, James is going to love this, but Roy Keane at Ipswich. He got so frustrated that certain people couldn't do and perform to the levels that he wanted because of, I'm Man United, I'm the captain, I've done this, I've won this. It sounds like Justin was very much the opposite, the complete opposite to that side of things.
Absolutely. I think sometimes, obviously outside of the whole banter side of things, sometimes you wouldn't have realised that he'd played in the Prem, because he came down to explain things onto your level. Not that we were stupid, but training with Tottenham versus training with Billericay, the facilities, the grounds, the equipment, it's just going to be completely different.
Of course, yeah.
He had, if he's used to having 3-4 bags of footballs to work with, but here at Billericay he's got one, he made it work. But he was never big time with it. He always used to explain things the right way, and you could tell. Definitely, you could tell. He's a great guy.
Definitely. So this is when your career is then starting to take off. The goals are starting to fly in at Billericay. Prior to the move to Brighton, do you remember at the time people talking about, other clubs and stuff like that coming down to watch you? Do you remember those kind of conversations at the time, or, being aware that, scouts and stuff like that are at the games?
Yeah, I mean, I remember obviously speaking to Justin. Justin was saying to me, I've spoken to a couple of people about you in the past, and weirdly enough, I don't think many people know this story, but I went on trial at Chelsea, and someone organised that for us, and basically said to me, look, go down to Chelsea for 2-3 days, go and just train with them, and go and see how it works and stuff like that. And at the time, obviously, my family was living in Hornchurch, and to get to Chelsea is all the way around the M25. More over my Brentford side. So it took me about 2 hours to get there by train. And then when I got to the station, I was to give the club a call, someone will come pick me up, take me to the ground. And it was insane. Like, I walked in, I had this bag with me, and we kind of drove through security, and I was kind of like, where do I go? I was like a lost puppy. It was like, I look back on it now and think you should have
first day of school.
Yeah, it was crazy. And they said, I'll go into like changing room 5, for instance, and I've gone in there, and there's Carlton Cole, John Makaleli, Lampard, there was Torandro Flo, I'm pretty sure he was there as well, like, and there was just all these names that I'd seen on TV the week before, just chatting like normal human beings. But then to me, they're like superheroes, because I can't really believe that I'm in the changing room getting changed. And do you know what? I trained okay, and we had a bleep test, done okay in the bleep test.
Yeah.
Some drills. The drills went really, really well. And, I finished the session, and there was like, oh, there's food upstairs. And I was like, you get food? In my head, I'm thinking, you get food here? It's like, what's going on here? And, went upstairs, got some food, and I'm looking around, and I can't really believe all these players that I'm seeing that have, basically complete stars. Yeah. And I left there, and I just got on the way home. And then on the way home, I just had some serious doubts that I wasn't at that level. And I kind of, almost kind of went back into myself. And I was meant to go for another 2 days, and I didn't go. I went home, and I was like, do you know what? I'm not going. And I think the reason for that, when I look back on it now, is the fear of rejection. I think I probably thought to myself, right, I'm literally going from, it must have been like tier 11 or something, all the way up to tier 1, just like that. And looking back, I think, are you an absolute idiot? I should have stayed with it. I should have just dealt with it. I should have just gone on with it. But I think at the time, I remember it was only on the way home as well. When I was there, I felt great. When I got involved, you got given a whole training kit and a towel and everything, and it all felt really good. And it was just on the train home, I had too much time to think. And I wish I had someone who was like football mad in my family that would have said, are you absolutely crazy? You need to get your ass back down there. But it wasn't really like that. And that's not my dad's fault, not my mum's fault. I just wish I had more confidence with someone that was scoring goals when I got that opportunity, because that was a once in a lifetime.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, James, because I've got a couple of things I want to ask on that.
Yeah. So I think that highlighted for me, from a personal point of view, having sort of seen football now quite in depth from sort of academy level. I did 2 years work at that level up to like non-league now. I think that highlighted for me, and I don't know if you've thought about it, is you were told 2 or 3 days, and that's such a short amount of time. I think the fear of not being able to show yourself in 2 or 3 days, it must have been like, that would have played a bigger part, I think, on your mind, that I've only got tomorrow and the next day. What if I don't sort of show something? Whereas now, there's no way. Maybe at non-league level they would do that now, but at academy is 6 or 10 weeks usually.
Yeah.
As long as that, because they need to give you time to come out of your shell and get to know the group, and then they'll start to sort of assess it, and they'll just leave you that first 2 or 3 days. They shouldn't even be looking at you really. So it probably sums up how things were then to now, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between then and now, because I think you have to give someone time to adapt to their environment and even to get to know the names of people. It's even that side of things and how the club works as a whole and how they play. And in 3 days, you're really going to learn how a team plays and how they want their striker to play when you go down there. But at the same time, when you look back on something, you think, I wish I'd just given that a chance. Because even 3 days, I probably would have learned something that I'd have been able to bring back if I did get rejected, and probably been able to use that even further. But I remember after a day, I got on the train back and I was just like, I'm not going to be able to do this at all. And
was you given a chat by anybody there? Did anybody say to you on the first day, like, don't stress, don't worry? Was you given any reassurance, or was it very much, there's the changing room 4, go?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I chatted with the reserve team manager just for a little while, and he was asking me a little bit about myself, what type of player I am, but that really was about it. And you kind of almost ghosted around the training facilities and the changing rooms and stuff, because you are literally, where I was not involved in the program at all as a youngster, how things work, and you just don't want to do anything wrong. You don't want to annoy anybody or kind of make yourself stand out in a negative way. So you kind of just like, okay, cool, I better get in line. And the bleep test, for instance, we're lining up in the bleep test, and I'm going, and in my head I'm thinking, do not come last, don't you dare come last. And it's just that mentality of I don't want to also really make myself look bad, but I also want to make sure that I kind of ghosted my way through it. And nowadays, if I spoke to a young person, I'd tell them, beat everyone in that bleep test, beat everyone in all those drills, because realistically you will need to come at the top of the pile regardless if it's 3 days or 8 weeks. And I think at the time I was just probably a bit overwhelmed with the experience, I'd probably say.
Did when you got back to when you got back to Billericay, did Justin Edinburgh say anything to you at the time then about it, or was it kind of just like, well, if that's how you feel, let's just crack on with what we're doing here?
Well, I think I was doing all right for the club, so I think when I kind of said to him, it was a great experience, bit far. I don't think I'd ever have an opportunity there. Some of their players were just phenomenal. I played up a lot of how it was over there in terms of like the ability of some of the other players, because some of them were ridiculous. Some of the young lads I had no idea who they were. Some of them didn't speak any English, but they let their football do the talking. And I kind of, when I went back, I said, you know what, it was such a fantastic experience. Really appreciate it. I think I'm going to focus on what I'm doing here. And he just respected it. He didn't turn to me and be like, oh, that's a stupid thing to do. But he kind of just respected, what I thought. I think it's a situation where it's good to see how the other half live, even in that sense, and how they train and how they work and how they eat as well is a big part of it. But no, he just respected it and just said, okay, no problem.
Yeah, definitely. So at that point then, obviously we now know that the move to Brighton happened. At the time, other than Brighton, do you remember of any other clubs being interested in you? Did you ever have any other conversations with other people other than Brighton?
No, not really. I'd love to say yeah, but I don't think there were, or if there was, I didn't know about them anyway. I think there was always murmurs of someone being here and someone coming to watch or whatever. But you kind of just, I was very, very focused on what I wanted to do for the club at Billericay. I had a really good time there. From the lady that worked behind the bar to the chairman to, we had a really good relationship with that club. And that was probably something where I was just quite focused and just wanted to stick with.
Fair enough. So then the move to Brighton happens. Kind of talk me through that process, having gone to, having your trial that we now know of at Chelsea. Where did you find the belief from after having that experience to then go, actually, do you know what? This is the right move for me now. I feel ready to be able to do this.
So the way it kind of played out was I was meant to play that weekend, and the manager had changed now. It had gone to Matthew, I think it's Matthew Humphries, I think his name was, but the manager had changed over at Billericay, and there was a weekend where I was meant to be working, and I kind of said, you know what, I'm not actually able to work. Got football. It was all a bit crazy, but in real time, I was actually meant to be taking my girlfriend to Paris for her birthday. So I said to him, do you know what, man, I'm really sorry I'm not here this weekend. Like, I was top scorer. I was on absolute fire at the time. And I probably took the mick a little bit, if I'm going to be really honest with it. I look back on it and think that was stupid. But I said to him, do you know what? I said, I'm not going to be able to work. I'm not going to be able to play this weekend. And he was like, why? I said, I've got to work. He was like, right, okay. All right, no problem. Go off to Paris, take my girlfriend on holiday for like a weekend. My phone starts ringing. As my phone's ringing, I realise it's an international ringtone and it's the gaffer. So I panicked and I was like, oh, crap, like, what am I doing? Stupid. So I pretty pressed cancel and just turned my phone off like the idiot I am, and just kind of forgot about it. Get to training on a Tuesday and he says to me, where was you over the weekend? I said, I was at work. Well, I'll ask you again, where was you the weekend? I said, I was at work. He said, right. He said, I'm going to suspend you and I'm going to dock your pay until you decide to tell me the truth.
Oh.
Right, okay. I said, all right, all right, I'm sorry. I apologise. Told him the truth. Said to him, I took my girlfriend away. He was like, you let me down, which I had, to be fair. I was like, I think I was 20, I think I was. So you let me down. I want you to apologise to the boys. You are going to be suspended for a week and we are going to dock your wages for a week. I said, that's fine. I can accept that.
Yeah.
Apologise to the boys, got on with it. But I remember I got into the bar and the chairman gave me some real stick. Like he laid into me a little bit. And I thought, you know what, this situation's been dealt with. I thought, let's just kind of move on. But he got my back up a little bit, and we'd got on great previous to that.
Yeah.
So anyway, a week goes by, train hard, running on a Saturday, etc., etc. The next Saturday, we're playing against Worthing, which is in Brighton. And when I go to get into the changing room, the manager says to me, I'm going to start you today. You owe me. And I was like, okay. I was like, no problem. We had a fantastic relationship, and I was like, you're spot on. Anyway, I've gone out there and I've just run riot. I think I scored after about 10 minutes and I was bullied. I remember it was probably one of the best games I've ever played. I bullied the defenders and I was just sitting there thinking, I'm going to make the chairman really regret having a go at me, sort of thing. Scored again in the second half. And I didn't realise the Brighton scout was in the crowd watching his two centre-backs that were on loan from Brighton.
Right.
So that's kind of how that kicked off, and then they started watching me for the next couple of weeks, and then basically put a bid in about 3 weeks later, I think it was. Wow. And that's kind of how it happened. So when, after a game, manager said to me, look, I think you're going into the Football League, and I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, we've had an offer come in. I've had a phone call from Brighton. They want to meet with you this week to have a chat about a contract.
Wow.
And I kind of laughed. I went, yeah, all right, good one. And he was like, no, I'm deadly serious. And then within the space of 2 weeks, deal was done, and I was moving to Brighton to start working down there. So,
do you remember those kind of conversations at the time, talking to Brighton? Because if I've got it correct from my knowledge on here, it would have been Dean Wilkins who was the manager at the time.
Dean Wilkins, the manager, yeah.
What was the first kind of conversations with him?
So, to be fair, it was more with his assistant. Hold on, just turn the light on. That's better. Yeah, it was more with his assistant to start off with, which was mad because it's always called, his name was called Dean as well. So it's Dean Withers. And, he basically explained that he's been watching. They want to take a punt. They think I've got good attributes. They just think I need to work on a couple of things. And, the first time I met Dean Wilkins, the gaffer, was on a training pitch and shook his hand and kind of just went straight to it. It was a lot different to the trial I kind of had with Chelsea, because a lot of the players, if I'm going to be honest, they weren't such high profile, so they were quite down to earth, or what I would expect to be down to earth. And First training session was a bit of a nightmare. I'll be honest with you. I remember that much. First training
Really?
session, did a shooting drill with mannequins. Never used mannequins like at my non-league level.
Right.
In a shooting drill, and I was firing the ball and it hit one mannequin. And they said, "Oh, follow it up, hit the ball again, hit the mannequin again." And it was like, I haven't even got a shot on target yet, but all the other boys were doing a warm up and they were running around and they all saw it. And I was like, "Oh God, this is not the best way to start your Brighton career, to be completely honest." So I had a lot of learning to do, and to be fair, it did toughen me up.
Right. Okay. We had Dean Hammond on here a couple of weeks back. Obviously, he was at the club at the time. Do you, just as a kind of a side point before we go on to your time at Brighton, do you remember much of?
Oh yeah,
much of him?
Yeah. Probably without a shadow of doubt, one of the nicest guys to play the game. I remember kind of welcomed me with open arms, and they always used to say, "You used to always go sideways." Always used to go sideways, and I remember we did a possession drill. You probably won't even remember this, but we did a possession drill, and I'm pretty sure he didn't lose the ball once, not once.
Yeah.
He had the ball every time he got it, played it, looked over his shoulder, got it, played it, looked over his shoulder, and I think that's the first time I'd seen more, well, to a word, perfection in a drill, consistently, non-stop. There was he didn't make any mistakes. He didn't lose the ball. He didn't trip over or put it out of play or misuse a pass. So yeah, I rate him quite highly. And I think he's had a fantastic career. Jesus, he's had a great career.
Yeah.
To play at that level for so long. And yeah, I thought he deserves all of it. I think it's been great.
Yeah, he was one of the nicest people we've had on the show, 100%. So your time at Brighton, you weren't there for a massive amount of time. Kind of, how do you reflect on that opening spell within the Football League? Because you didn't play a huge amount of games for them. But what did you kind of take away from that spell?
Probably one of the biggest lessons I've had in football. I played 90% of the reserve games, and scored in probably at least 2 in 3. I probably had a record of about 2 in 3, so I was scoring consistently in reserve games.
Yeah.
And the strikers for Brighton weren't scoring, and I remember Wilkins called me up to his office once. And I went up there and I was like, "Oh, what have I done?" And I went into his office, and as soon as I sat down, he said, "Have you ever seen my office before?" And I said, "No." And he went, "Why?" I said, "I don't know." I was really confused by this whole conversation. I was like, "I don't know why." And he said, "So my strikers aren't scoring, and you haven't knocked on my door to ask me why you haven't started once." And I was like, wow, that's a very good point. And do you know what it did? In my head, I was not upsetting the apple cart and just wanted to train hard and hoped I'd get rewarded off that. But in his head, it was like I didn't want it, and I'd probably rested on my laurels of, making it into the Football League and just kind of sitting there. And then, in hindsight, I'd sitting there thinking, do you know what? I wish, again, I'd known that sort of lesson. So I should have gone into his door and said to him, "You know what? Why are you not playing me? These guys ain't scoring at all, and this is kind of what happens."
But maybe, to kind of flip it, maybe, I don't know, you'll be able to answer this one, but if you're thinking at the time, I'm in the reserves, they're watching me, they know what I'm capable of, I'm scoring goals for fun at this level, surely it's then down to them to say, right, let's get you in the first team, or let's give you a chance, let's get you on the bench. Let's kind of acclimatise you to that. So probably from at the time, prior to that conversation, you're thinking, well, I'm doing what you're telling me to do.
Yeah, completely.
Maybe.
That's where my head was at. My head was, there, people were, coming to the reserve games, and they're like, "Why haven't we started in the first team?" I said, I don't know. And I didn't want to, I was so wary of, didn't want to disrespect the manager, and didn't want to maybe again upset the law and order of things. But the first game he started me was away to Cheltenham, and the last game of the season when a lot of the players were injured, and I scored in the first half. I went ballistic as well, by the way. I scored in the first half, But crazy enough, I thought, right, do you know what? This is my time to shine now.
Yeah.
That whole pre-season or leading up to pre-season, I was in the gym. I was out running in hills. I was on holiday running in sand. I was like, had it in my head after getting that taste of scoring goals in the Football League. I was like, right, I'm going to make sure he can't ignore me. I'm going to just go for it. And then I remember getting back to training, and probably 2 weeks in, he bought 2 strikers, both league experience. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of how it goes. And yeah, that's when kind of Brentford kind of made their move and came in for me a couple of months later.
Yeah. So, because we obviously doing these podcasts for a few months now, and we've been talking to different players and what they do at the end of the season. Did Brighton at the time, did they have their kind of like end of season meetings where you sit down and go, right, this is what we're kind of expecting you from next season? Did any of those kind of conversations happen? Because I'm thinking maybe if they're then going, right, we're going to sign 2 experienced players. If we're not going to play you, let's at least get you out on loan. We still want you, but go out and get some, go out and continue to keep playing football. Did anything like that happen at all before the Brentford move?
No, not at all. I think probably at that point he'd probably lost a bit of faith in me. It was weird for me. Scoring that goal was literally the happiest time. First goal, it was a good goal as well. I was really happy with it. But maybe by that point, regardless of what happened, he may have thought to himself, actually, I need to revamp next season. Because, you have to remember, obviously, managers' jobs are fragile in the Football League, especially. You lose too many, you draw too many, your home form isn't great. All of a sudden, the heat's onto you. So maybe he thought to himself, right, regardless of this young kid scoring his first goal, I need to get some more firepower in it. And that's what he ended up doing.
Definitely. So after that, before you signed for Brentford, then when during those first few months of the season going on, where are you at mentally, having gone from, as I said, being so focused in pre-season, this is what I'm going to do. I'm working hard. I'm working flat out. I've just scored in the last game of the season. My confidence and what I want and my goal now is so clear. Mentally, for those first few months of the season, where are you at?
Oh, to be fair, as soon as those new strikers came in, my head dropped straight away. I think I realised that probably 2 solid months of hard work that had pretty much been, for nothing, because I think after that point, it was like, well, his intentions are where his intentions are. And, I can understand it, now kind of on that managerial side, I can fully understand kind of what he's talking about. It's a shame, but that's kind of where it is. And then when, the call got put in that, Brentford are coming forward for you and, you're going to be making a move over there, I was over the moon. But it also lit a bit of a fire in me to get to Brentford and just ensure that I really stamp my authority on it.
Definitely. Now, obviously, Brentford at the time, I believe, were in the division below Brighton, but I think the manager at the time was Andy Scott.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the conversations with them when you first signed, what are they saying that they're expecting from you, or is it very similar to Brighton that just come in, show us what you're capable of, and then we'll kind of assess things as they go along? I'm always interested to find out what those opening conversations are like.
Do you know what? The conversation was, it gave me a hell of a lot of confidence, because he said, I've been after you for quite a while. But the price tag wasn't right, and we've been to see, I think he said like 4 of my reserve games, and I'd scored in every 4 of them. So Brentford were at the time were kind of flirting with relegation a little bit, or were in the lower half of League Two.
Yeah.
And, he kind of said to me, look, I want you to come in, I want you to, stamp your authority, I want you to score some goals, I want you to get us out of the trouble that we're in. Right. And that, I think the fact that he even said to me, I've been after you for quite a while, it just made me it made me feel on top of the world, because I'd gone from a place where you're not wanted to a place where, right, we really want this guy, we really want to come in. He could have been completely lying to me, but it done the greatest job ever, because it instilled that confidence in me to make me think, right, well, I owe this guy, I need to give him something over here. And that was really the opening conversation that pushed us forward.
Definitely. Talk to me about that debut then, because from what I've read, it was chaotic, to say the least.
I got mugged off of that game. That's what I'm saying. That's where I'm at, because I think it was not an own goal. It was no way an own goal. So I was in the wall for the free kick.
You're going to love this, James. You're going to love this.
Listen, I feel frustrated on this one. So I was in the wall for a free kick. The geezer's whipped the ball. It's hit me on the side. And because it's hit me on the side, it's then gone in. So I'm sitting there thinking, obviously, it's goal. It's on target. The rule in my head was if you shoot on target and it hits someone, it still goes in, it's your goal. I'm a striker. I'm taking everything. That's what I would always say. I must have been walking in at half time. And I think we were 2-1 down at half time. But I must have been walking in at half time. Someone put their arm around me and gone, "Oh, don't worry about it."
Worry about what?
I went, "Don't worry about what?" It's like the goal, and they started patting me on the back. I was like, "Don't worry about it, the own goal." What are you talking about? I said, "No way." Listen, and then next thing you know, I've got into the changing room, and Scotty's looking at me, and he's going, "Oh, bloody hell!" And I went, "Bloody hell, what?" And he went, "They've given that to you as an own goal." I said, "Listen, that ain't mine. I'm not accepting that." But he's like, "Well, sit down, calm down." And obviously we spoke over it, and then, it couldn't have happened any weirder. 2-2, about 10 minutes to go. Just running through on goal, slotted it in front of all the Brentford fans, the away fans behind the goal, and just went crazy. Like, I ran around the goal, and that was my first goal for Brentford. But it was the phone calls I got after from some of my mates was just, I was like, what are you doing? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, so you score an own goal, then you score the winner? Like, is this a joke? The phone calls were just funny. People just thought it was hilarious.
So the goal that you scored to get the winner, after having the experience that you did have at Brighton, to then being told, I wanted you for ages, you're my guy, I'm signing you now. To get that goal, going off the pitch, what are you feeling? What's the emotion?
Must have been a weight lifted.
Yeah.
Oh man, I still remember to this day, going through on goal was like in slow motion. It was literally, because I must have been put through on the halfway line, so I still had quite a way to go. And I had two big touches to get me as close to the goal as possible. And as soon as the goalkeeper came out, it sounds really cliche, but it just like everything completely slows down. You can't hear anything. And then I kind of slotted it, just opened my body and slotted it. And it's like just something off a training ground. It's not it's not a worldie or anything like that, but it's just a simple, well-taken goal. And to have that in front of these big stands with all red and white Brentford fans behind me, I kind of just ran behind the goal. And I was just probably just shouting. I was swearing a lot. I was probably, I remember like just running and just getting grabbed by everyone. And
what minute was that in the game? How late was it?
About 10 minutes to go. I think it was probably like 78, 79. And then you spend the next 10 minutes just hoping that they don't score.
Looking at the back four with serious face.
You're supposed to be concentrating, but you're looking at the time on the clock. And I think that was, for me, like, it's probably one of my most memorable goals, because it like you said, it's just a weight lifted. You actually, you then start to believe that you are good enough, and you start to believe that actually, you know what, I could do something really good for this club. And, the fans were just phenomenal, really welcoming. But I remember at the end of the game, like, Andy Scott just gave me this smile that was just like, told you. It was like, told you so. And then that was kind of led things on from there.
Definitely. Sorry, go on.
Did you learn a lot? Do you think you learned a lot that time now? Or I think the biggest question is, did you realise at the time, is that a moment where your brain thought, this is such a mental game, like the psychological side of the game, I mean, to go from where you was at, you've scored a goal at Brighton, I'm going to get there, and then it's back down again. Your manager's told you, why didn't you knock on my door? You're like, heads all over the place at the time. Did you realise back then, or is it only now looking back you think, wow, like the mental side of it is really tough?
I think it's more now. It's a lot of self-assessment. I think at that age I was at, I didn't do enough self-assessment. And I think when you get to that point now, when you have a chance to look back on what you achieved in your career, and maybe what you didn't achieve in your career as well, you get that opportunity to think, okay, well, what did I actually take from that? And it's just so weird, because that's not the only time it happened in my career where someone didn't show faith in me, and then I went to someone that did, and then I scored, and I was like, okay, well, cool. It must, it can't just be. It's probably just me and my head, my mentality, and what I'm thinking of myself as a footballer that commands what happens now. So I think it's more self-assessment now. But what I want to try and do now, I'm kind of in that assistant manager role, is get players to think of the open side. Yeah, try and think of exactly what it is they want from the game and how to achieve it, and think about it now. Don't think about it when your career's finished. And that's what I'm going to try and do most.
That was going to be my next question, actually. What I was going to say is, do you think you've taken bits from that? Because, of course, the thing is, you played under guys that, like you said, had played at a really good level. And you'd think maybe, and it's no disrespect, because every coach does things differently, and that's the beauty of the sport. There's not necessarily a total right and wrong. But do you take a lot from that now into your coaching, in terms of talking to the younger guys, not to get too downhearted, and then talking to the more experienced ones? You know what I mean? Do you share that now?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I probably saw it more at Sittingbourne when I was first made assistant manager, because we had this thing where I think we went through too many players. I think too many young lads came training with us, played a game, maybe two, left, or didn't play consistently, left. And I started to notice a bit of a pattern. And I actually told a group of the lads, I told probably about 6 of the lads, the story about being when I got scouted for Brighton. And there is that element of luck in there. But the big part of that is you never know who's watching. So you have to treat every game exactly the same. You can't have days off, so to speak. Not if you want to go as high as you want to go. You have to play every single game exactly like there's 4 scouts in the crowds and they're all watching just you. That's how you need to do it. And the reason I told them that is because I think there were so many good, technically gifted players that were just doing that. One week they'd be great, next week they'd be rubbish, one week they'd be average, next week they'd be phenomenal. And it was just more of a message that this does happen. You do get scouted from the lower leagues. You want it to be you rather than seeing on Twitter that it's someone else. Then you have to do these sort of things. So yeah, definitely.
The following season for Brentford is an amazing season.
Yeah,
go up as champions. You're in the first team. Playing consistently, scoring, etc. Prior to the injury at the end of that season, what is it like being part of a dressing room where things are just going unbelievably well, and you're now in that environment? You've had that kind of first half season under your belt. How are you kind of feeling about things?
I was over the moon. I think I was squad number 14 when I arrived there, and at the end of the season I went in there and said, look, I think the number 9 had left, and I said to him, I want the 9 shirt. And he went, absolutely. He went, take it, it's yours. And there was no question mark, there was no nothing. It was like, okay, cool, you're now the number 9, which is like the statesman, so to speak. And that dressing room was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. There was not a bad egg in there. Everyone was singing from the same hymn sheet. The drills that he made us do week in, week out. If you was one of those players that didn't want to do them, you stood out like a sore thumb. We had these like sprints we'd do with these 5 cones. It's like they're back. And, we had a couple of players on loan. I remember he was telling us this story, actually. We had a couple of players on loan, and one of them was like, oh, this is rubbish. Why are we doing this for? It's rubbish. And, the lads turned around and went, well, this is what we do. If you don't like it, you can get lost. And that is throughout the team. And it was hard. Like, it wasn't an easy drill to do.
Yeah.
We all were working from the same hymn sheet. And that was, that's why we won so many games. That's why we, got so many goals. And yeah, it was ridiculous. I felt like such a big part of Brentford in my heart, like going to, games with my mum and dad's. Fans will come up and say hello to my mum and dad, and they treat them with such respect and love, and and I truly believe that's. Yeah, I still support the club now without a shadow of a doubt, and I feel very, very blessed to have played for them. To be honest, and I know I've had a bit of a bad injury over there, but realistically, we would finish training, and I kid you not, you'd have about 9 of us stay out for training afterwards, just to practice and get better. And it was that culture. That was like, it wasn't just one or two players. We had solid 9, 10. The people that went home first probably looked weirder than the guys that stayed in training. That's just mental, I think.
Yeah. I want to talk about it only very briefly. But the injury at the end of the season, psychologically, from a mental aspect of it, what is it like when you get that kind of incident happen on the pitch? And just for clarity from James's perspective, I don't know how what you know on this one, but it was a double fracture. Was it cheekbone fractured eye socket as well? It was a major injury, wasn't it?
Yeah. Do you know? I don't mind speaking about it, to be fair. But it was weird. So one of my best friends, actually one of my groomsmen at my wedding, was playing for Rotherham at the time. Okay. And weirdly, he was on the bench. So got up there and I started as sub. I think I'd had a couple of games where I didn't do too well, and he rested me, which is completely understandable.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of landing after being hit with it, and I landed, and I felt like my head was just pulsating. And the physio come running on, and he's kind of sat me up, and he's looked at me, and he's kind of said, he's put his hand over one eye and said, "Oh, how many fingers am I holding up?" And I said, "Oh, 2." Put his hand over my other eye, he said, "How many fingers am I holding up?" I said, "I don't know, it's black." And he just, when I then opened my eyes to look at him properly, he just panicked. Like, he didn't panic in a sense of started, going mad. I could just see the look in his face told me that something was wrong.
Yeah.
So he's called for a stretcher. A stretcher comes on, stretches me off, and we get into the changing room. And my best friend had actually come in to see. He'd obviously run around the pitch and come in. And when we're in the changing room, there's a lot of talking and a lot of shouting. Like kind of wiped it because I had a cut as well, so they're trying to wipe the blood off, and obviously the swelling's up, so they're trying to put ice on. And I just remember shouting. I said, "Everyone, just get off me!" And I sat up, and like obviously I could tell like one eye was just black, couldn't see anything. And I've stood in the mirror. There's a mirror above a sink in like the corner of the dressing room, and I'm looking in this mirror, and I can see myself, but when I'm closing my right eye, everything's just pitch black. And then I realised I've actually gone blind in my left eye. So I've kind of just stopped for a minute and just said, "Someone please get me an ambulance." Like, get me an ambulance. So it's on its way. Paramedics are on their way. Paramedics got there, and I was quite calm, to be fair. I don't know what was going through my head at the time, but I just remember there's no point going mad because I've got this headache was ridiculous. Like, the worst headache in the world. And it took me down to the hospital. The actual team bus came to the hospital as well. So the players all came to the hospital after the game. I kind of, I saw a doctor that night, and he said, "Look, I can't give you any full information, but it looks like you've detached something in the back of your eye socket. We're going to have to see how things go." And I was up there for 3 days. And it was just, my mum and dad came up, my wife came up, my now wife came up as well. And it was just crazy. It was absolutely horrendous. And I remember on the second day, the doctor said to me, "Look, you do need to be prepared. You're not going to play football." He said, "I don't know if there's another,
wow.
I don't know if there's another skill set that you've got, or if there's anything you've been working on, but I don't think you're going to be able to play football again, just from the injuries that I'm seeing."
That must have been horrible hearing that.
Oh yeah, it was.
God, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, football kind of takes a bit of a back seat because I'm then thinking, have I actually only just got one eye? Like, am I not going to be able to drive? Am I not be able to play with my kids properly? And it was crazy. My wife cried a lot, and I kept saying to her, "For God's sake, can you stop crying?" She was like, "What is it?" She was like, "What's the matter with you? Like, this is really serious." I was like, "No, it's serious, but it doesn't help." But weirdly enough, in that ward opposite me, I had a guy who was in a motorbike accident that was paralysed from the waist down. There was another guy that fell down some stairs and he'd broken like his leg and his arm. Like, they were quite severe. And the guy that was in the motorbike accident, didn't speak to him once. Like, I know obviously he was asleep or anything, but it gave me perspective. I'm still walking.
Right.
I know it's terrible, but at the time, I was kind of trying so hard to just be positive about something.
Yeah.
And that's all. I remember he was in the corner of the room and he just laid there the whole time because obviously he was paralysed from a motorbike accident. And I just thought, I can walk. I've got my limbs. Just try and stay as positive as you can as time goes on, and that's all I tried to do.
Yeah. And when did you get the first kind of inkling that you could come back to football? How kind of soon after the incident actually happened did that conversation start happening?
So I was booked into surgery quite quickly to repair the cheekbone. So I've got a metal plate just in this area in my cheek here,
Right.
and they were basically sewing up or tried to connect the eye socket again. And basically what had happened is with the trauma, blood had seeped into my eyeball, and my eyeball had blood in it, which is the reason I couldn't see.
Yeah.
But I couldn't check and see if anything had detached until the blood's gone. So if you imagine for like the next couple of weeks, I've just got blood teardrops coming out of my eye where the eye was trying to get rid of it.
Yeah.
It looked like a horror movie. It just looked awful. And once that had happened, I had surgery in hospital in Chelsea, and that went really, really well. But then after that, it started getting a bit blurry. And as time went on, I'm taking all these medications, all these eye drops, all these injections, and it slowly started to come back. But when I was allowed back to training, they basically did an exercise with me where I kind of said, look, I'm going to stay out, bag of balls, just clip it into the crossbar. And I was out there for about 45 minutes. I must have hit the crossbar once or twice. And this was a basic exercise that I'd done every single training session for years. I could always put the ball into the crossbar. Very basic, very easy. And I couldn't do it because I couldn't get the distances of what short and long was. And it got me down a lot. I was out there for so long, like Andy Scott came out and said, look, no, come in, just come in. Stop staying out there, come in. And I was like, 5 more minutes. And I couldn't do it. And I got home then and then realized I was kind of like, am I going to be able to do this? And the boys got me through. The boys, the manager, physio, they would not let me give up. And, when I can get back to training properly, where I was non-contact, so I'd be the floater or the one with the bib. As soon as I got that back, I got my hunger back for it. And I was like, you know what, I ain't going to beat me. I'm going to come back to it. And it was, the eyesight's still blurry, still a bit blurry, but I'm able to, I'm still walking and I'm still talking. So at the time, I wouldn't probably have been able to get through it without the boys and the manager or the club, to be fair, as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be part of my question following on from that.
Yeah.
How supportive were the club at the time? Because we had Darren Eady on recently, who went through horrific injuries when he was at Leicester and didn't necessarily feel that he got the support around him to help him through that time. So it's very interesting to hear that you kind of had the opposite experience with the club.
Yeah, it was a talking point at the time because the injury itself was so serious. But then that was the whole thing on Sky Sports and TalkSport. Was it a red card or not? Because he's gone down holding his head like it's been a clash of heads, but it's actually his elbow.
Right.
You've got some commentators and pundits saying that's definitely a red card. His elbow's above his own head. And you've got others saying no, it's an accident. And it caused a bit of it was a conversation starter anyway.
Yeah.
But I got home from the hospital, and when I went into the training ground just to see the boys, because I was so bloody bored indoors, the amount of cards, get well soon letters, from not even just Brentford fans, but like fans all over the country. There was a huge majority of Brentford fans that were sending me letters and stuff. But we had some kids that supported different clubs just saying get well soon, hope you're well. And I didn't have any space in my living room. I had so many, and it does keep you going. 100% keeps you going, and that the club for me 100% helps without a shadow of a doubt.
Definitely. I don't even know why I'm going to ask this question, but did you hear anything from Pablo Mills? Did he?
No, didn't hear anything. And I think for me, I would have said something. I would have, like, if I badly tackle someone in training, I'm quite apologetic because this is people's careers,
Yeah.
But no, nothing. Not
No.
one at all.
Okay. So you mentioned there about the hunger to get back after having that injury. So the club obviously end the season very well. They're promoted up to the next division. During that summer, then how does it kind of come about the move away from the club then happens to Shrewsbury? Did you kind of know that something like that was happening? Did the club say that they didn't want you anymore? What happened then?
I had no idea, to be fair. Do you know what? For me, in my head, I was so happy and comfortable at Brentford. I was ready for the challenge. I was good to go. Like, I can't explain to you the feeling of, that just before pre-season or that summer, everyone you're speaking to just congratulates you. Congratulations on getting promoted. Congratulations on getting promoted. It feels phenomenal. And to know you did it with such good lads as well. A couple of them are non-league lads. And to know you did it with them probably made it even better. We weren't world beaters. We didn't have anyone in there that, was so, was really, really at that high peak of their career, but they worked damn hard together. And it was a great feeling. But I think when it came about, I spoke to Andy Scott, and he said, they've had a call from Shrewsbury. They want to offer you quite a serious deal because I think Grant Holt, who was at Shrewsbury, had just left. So they had a space for the 9. There you go. There you go. They were looking for a number 9. I don't know where I was on their target list, so to speak, but I know they were looking for someone for quite a while. So when I went up there, the deal they kind of offered like a 3-year deal. With money and 3-year deals at the time just weren't out there.
I suppose especially at that level it's probably very rare.
Yeah, a 3-year deal at a League 2 club, you're like, really? And I think when we played against them twice, we pretty much annihilated them. And obviously I think I played the first game. I didn't play the second game away because I was injured, but the first game we played at home, I'd done all right, done quite well. And it kind of came out of nowhere. It happened very quickly.
Right. Any part of you that thought, I don't want to leave? I'm just, do you know what I mean? Because I know the 3-year deal would have been very tempting, but any part of you that just thought, look, I've come through this. I'm so happy here. I don't want to leave, because that must have been a very, you've had a very good season with them.
Yeah.
The injuries happened, you've recovered, the promotions happened, you're now ready to test yourself at the next level, and yet a team from League 2 are then saying, right, well, we want you on a 3-year deal. It's just like, how do you decide between that?
Do you know what it was? I think when I had my meeting with Andy Scott, as weird as this going to sound, I've never said this before, I kind of felt like he thought it was time for me to go. And, I think the success that we had, the problem was I'd been in League 1 with Brighton, hadn't really done anything. I don't know if he had that fear in the back of his head that, one, I've got the injury, and number 2, I'm not proven at League 1 level. And maybe that was kind of in his head, but I did get that vibe a little bit. And maybe it was the fact that he needed to free up some money to get bigger players in or bigger names in. Like I said to you before, I think looking back, I do completely understand the fragility of being a manager. It's not easy. And I did get that vibe that it was, go and have a look at it, go and see what you think of it. Stadium was fantastic. They were very welcoming. But I think they were expecting me to hit the ground and just go and just run with it, which unfortunately didn't happen.
Again, I want to ask you your first kind of conversation sort of with Paul Simpson to begin with. Is that very much what you just said there? The conversation was, right, this is kind of what we expect from you, or did that, again, not really happen?
I mean, in terms of, it was more of a like, look, this is what you're going to get from us. You know, this is what we want from you. We want to be in the playoffs. We want to get promoted within 2 years. If we do that for you, you've got to think to yourself, in your third year, you're going to be in League One, and this is kind of the ideology behind it. And the plan was there. The plan was set out. The one thing I probably didn't take into account was that with the injury that I'd had, I probably needed a little bit more time to get to back to things like bravery on the pitch and things like I'm going up for headers and that. I think mentally I didn't prepare myself for how much time that was going to take to get myself back to what I wanted to. So, you know, for them as a club, they were thinking, right, we've got this guy coming in. He's just won the league with Brentford. He's good to go. But in reality, I think I went down there and I probably wasn't as sharp, wasn't as hungry in certain situations because mentally I was still carrying what had already happened. Now, it took me a good solid year at least to kind of get over what had happened and feel like I was able to go up for headers and do this and do that. And actually, sometimes football doesn't give you time, does it? It's something that happens quite quick.
Well, again, I mean, I'm going purely by what I've read on this part. In the November of that same season, the manager then places you on the transfer list.
Yeah.
So they must have known. They will have known about the injury that happened only a few months earlier. Did they even have a conversation with you about, you know, what do you think it is that's happening at the moment? You know, are you okay from like a mental aspect? You know, how are you finding things? How are you adjusting? Or is it just very much, he's not performing, we've got to get rid of him? Because from my head, I'm now thinking, why is nobody then sitting down with you going, right, how are you? What is going on with you? How can we help you?
I think you'll only find that certain managers and coaches will do that. But I think there has to be a level of care as well in terms of having someone who's going to ask those questions. The Justin Edinburghs, the Andy Scotts.
Yeah.
You know, there's a level of not just, okay, this guy's playing for my football team, but actually, you know, for his health, for his ambition, having those conversations to find out what it is that is going to unlock the great player that is maybe in there. With Paul Simpson, he was under pressure because he wasn't getting the results that he'd put out that he was going to get. The season wasn't going the way that he'd, you know, broadcasted that it was going to be. And literally in that same season, I think it was myself and one other player got transfer listed really quickly, but it was all a bit mental. I mean, you know, I think I started then thinking, right, I'm away from my family at home, and I started probably making an excuse to myself when really I can look back and think I wasn't actually ready for that move. That was a big move.
Yeah.
They paid you some good money. You're on a big deal, a long deal. You know, was I ready for it? And realistically, probably not.
No. Do you remember quite vividly the conversation when they did place you on the transfer list, or do they kind of go through agents with that thing? Like, what?
No.
How did you react to that news? That must have been like a kick in the teeth, really.
I was furious because he put me into his office. Basically, we lost the cup game. We'd lost the cup game. He brought me into his office, hammered me for a bit, said, I'm putting you on the transfer list, and told me to get out. So then I kind of got out, went into the changing room where some of the other lads were, and I was like, I think he's just transfer listed me. He's been here for a couple of months. He's just transfer listed me, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. But I was pretty furious because I was like, you know, the plans that you've set in place, you know, this isn't a one man show. This isn't just, oh well, you know, Nathan must be to blame here. You know, we've got to look probably a little bit closer. And you know, I was quite critical, but at the same time, I was like, look, you know, if you get me a club back in London, I'll go back to London tomorrow. And a little while later, I've been on loan to AFC Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And then first game I played there, you know, I think he publicly slated me where he said, this guy's useless. And then my first game for AFC Wimbledon, I scored. And it was like, it was really weird. It's a similar thing that happened at Brighton, and it's, you know, maybe it probably might be a little bit in my head as well.
Was coming back to London a massive massive factor of going to AFC Wimbledon, because obviously again it's then going back into non-league, but it's the top of non-league. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the time they were in the National League, what is now the National League.
Yeah.
Was it just a case of I want to start enjoying my football again? Was the London factor important? You know, why them ahead of anybody else that came, or were they the only offer on the table?
I think at the time, because of how it was at Shrewsbury, I'd have played for anyone within the M25 or closer. Because I just wanted to play. I wanted to enjoy it again. I felt some of the criticism I received from Shrewsbury was pretty unfair.
Yeah.
And I think when I then came back to, your comfort zone where you remember what you did for certain clubs and how they made you feel and how the fans made you feel, I remember I stepped out onto the pitch at AFC Wimbledon. I felt like a different player. I felt completely different. I think I put my shirt on in the changing room and just stood there for a little bit. And I was like, I feel good now. I feel good. And I felt like it was like someone had just put batteries in me and just said, right, go and enjoy yourself. And I felt like completely, I didn't feel like that when I was playing for Shrewsbury, not at any point.
Yeah. Obviously, you then getting towards the end of that first season, still under contract with Shrewsbury. Obviously, you're out on loan.
Yeah.
You then get, from what I've read, you then pick up an injury towards the end of the season, which turns out to be cruciate ligament damage. You're finally starting to enjoy your football again, and then this happens. Like I'm just because I remember getting ligament damage in my ankle, and I've talked about it on the podcast previously. I was out of action for about 7 or 8 months, and I know how horrible that particular injury is, and just simple things like getting up and going for a walk, it's just bloody difficult.
Yeah. Nuts.
So for you as a pro footballer, going through all the kind of stuff you have, you're then starting to enjoy your football. Then this injury comes about. Yeah. You've got to go back to Shrewsbury at this point.
Yep, got to go back. Back to physio. It was awful, to be fair. The physio was like a really good guy. But the problem you've got is being at a club that don't really want you there while in treatment, so you're not involved with the team anyway. Yeah. If you're a bit of you might as well be a bit of a lost soul. You're like, you come in earlier than everyone else, you leave later than everyone else. But if you didn't go in, I don't really think anyone would care anyway. And it's hard, because it's not even like when you finish training, you can go to your mum and dad or something, you're 2.5 hours away. So it's like, mentally that was really, really tough. I think I probably changed as a player in the club, because after that, I spent all my time in the gym. I had to just do something to keep my mental health going. So I would I'd do my rehab, I'd do my physio, and then I'd spend an hour in the gym. I'd put my music on in the gym. If anyone wanted to find me in that club, I'd be in the gym. It's the only thing you can do apart from go home and almost kind of wallow a little bit. I had to do something to keep my spirits up, keep my mentality going. And that's just what I did. I literally just stayed in the gym as much as I could.
Yeah, but I did the complete opposite. I went into a very much a really poor mental state of I went into myself, people stopped coming around to visit, check in how you're doing, how things are going. And I remember they weren't able to properly diagnose which part of the ankle was actually going on, and just like 2 or 3 months of doing physio. And then eventually went to a different hospital, and they told me, it's not this, it's actually something else. So you've now got to start your physio all over again. Yeah. And like, it messes with your head. And I didn't have anyone at the time. Well, I did, but I didn't want to turn around and talk to anybody at the time. Yeah. So I just completely withdrew into myself. So it's very interesting to hear you kind of like the complete opposite. Like, I need something, otherwise that could happen,
Mental health in football is, I think scrap that. Mental health in general, I think, is such an important thing for men, because so many people don't really know, not even just who to speak to, but what to actually say. They don't know if it's normal. They don't know if it's just them. And I think You know, it takes a tremendous amount of bravery to be able to come out and say, you know what, I really struggled at that point. And with football being such a business, you know, have clubs in the past anyway, if you look back at it, I don't think some clubs have had the time to think, okay, we better deal with this, rather than, oh, ship them out, get someone else in, because that's probably part of the problem. That I don't think it's like now so much, but I definitely think that was a problem back in the day.
Yeah, it was just.
I think it was missing.
Mm.
You think it was missing from football a little bit back then? I know we're still probably not perfect now, to be honest. It's not there, and I know there's lots more campaigns and lots more things to try and get us to speak out in general. But I think clubs are also sort of employing people on that front, and like employing things like even a pastor. Some clubs have people in there for like religious side of it. They have people in there to talk about mental health. Actually, employees of the club. Do you think that was something that you mentioned being in the physio room a lot? Was that sort of an escape for you? You mentioned the physio being a nice guy. Was that a time that you could sort of express some feelings back then, or was there not really any of that?
Not really, because the problem with a long-term injury is you're at the bottom of the list if you've got someone who can play Saturday who's got a niggling ankle or something like that. Everyone knows you're injured. Everyone knows you're not going to be back soon. So it's kind of like, you know, actually we can kind of deal with him a little bit later. And you have to remember, that you're a human being. You have feelings, so you have to make sure that you're putting your energy somewhere. I think what you were saying about having like a pastor or someone you can talk to, at Tonbridge have got a pastor over there, and a guy called Neil who supported the club pretty much his whole life. It's phenomenal. Wow. They had some, you know, some terrible things. I'm probably skipping forward a little bit, but they've had some bad things happen at the club before, and every player's got that guy's phone number, and everything you say to him is confidential. Everything you want to speak to him about, and this is at non-league level. You know, like you were saying, it probably has changed a bit now, but I think things like that need to, well, obviously, if people want to do it, should be installed in some of the higher clubs, because, like we said, mental health is becoming more open now, but I dread to think how many footballers fell off because their mental health wasn't addressed, like good footballers that wasn't addressed.
Yeah, and I think with how big the game is, the only way you're gonna, well, in my opinion, the only way that becomes more dominant is if that's done through the courses that people do, because we all go through your level 1, your level 2. You might skip that if you've been a pro and you go on your B license, and it's not discussed. I mean, it's not even touched on really. You talk about teamwork and team ethics and that kind of stuff, but not actual mental health. I think that could be a course where they have people in to make sure that to actually get into a club, that is part of the checklist. You need emergency first aid, which is true already. You need safeguarding. And by the way, you also need mental health, because every player you deal with, nearly all of them are going to have something going on at some point in their lives. We all lose people and different things happen. So I think that's probably the only way, because unless it's a must, people are just going to brush it.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think that's really important to take into account. I think it just makes sense. I mean, like we was kind of talking about earlier with a lot of the players that are in, you know, League 1, League 2 conference now, they don't know in August who they're going to be paid by. Some people that haven't got clubs, and let's say, for instance, you've got 2-3 kids and a mortgage. You know, I know I would struggle with that. I would really struggle with that. I've been there before, where I don't know where my next paycheck's coming from, and I would, in this day and age now, I would struggle even more.
Yeah, 100%. Going back to kind of an on the field stuff. Eventually, you are allowed to leave Shrewsbury, which must have been a massive weight off your shoulders.
Absolutely.
You moved to and signed for Hayes and Yeading, but very quickly, from what I've read, within like a month of the season kicking off, you're then going out on loan to League 2 Hereford.
Yeah.
So what happened in that interim period? Like, you know, because there probably would have been some League 2 clubs interested in you during that summer. So why decide to go into the National League, and then, you know, the loan move happened? What kind of talk me through those few months, because I'm fascinated to know why you went back into the National League and then up again. If you see what I mean.
So when I left Shrewsbury, I moved back down south. So my family moved back down south. But I think the problem that I'd had is I then had 2 serious injuries next to my name. So a
Right.
lot of clubs were thinking, is he going to be all right? Is he not going to be all right? He's done basically 2 of the biggest injuries you could probably do.
Yeah.
Can he even still play, sort of thing? So I came back down south, and I just, got in touch with a couple of friends, and that one of them in particular said, "Look, come and play over at Hayes for us for a little bit."
Yeah.
It wasn't a great experience, but I got to play again, and I got to actually kick a ball around and be back down south and stuff, and it was just okay. I'd just done a bit, got me fit, but then I had a call from Hereford, who were, obviously still in League Two after a striker, and they said, "You know what? Would you mind coming to trial for us?" And it's a really weird time because my wife and kids have moved back down south. Here I am coming back down south, and then within a month saying I might go back up north. And it did cause a few problems because, my wife was like, "I'm not going through that again." It was a nightmare. You didn't feel great. You didn't, you weren't happy, and then you've got the battle of your next paycheck versus what you're doing with your family. And this,
Yeah.
it was really tough. So, I went on trial. I said to her, "Let me go and do the trial. Let me see how I do." And the trial went well. Played against Telford in the trial, and he literally said to me straight after, I said, "Look, I do want you to come down and sign to the end of the season."
Right.
And then it's going back and having that conversation with your family. And, in the end, she didn't come with me. She stayed down south. And, I think the big thing I probably realised after I signed that deal to the end of the season was it was a bit of a selfish move.
Okay.
It was me trying to stay in the league as much as possible and trying to recoup the feeling I got at Brentford. But in hindsight, I wasn't, 20, 21, 22. I'm now, at 25, 26 sort of age, like, or pushing forward. And, I look back, I do think it was selfish. It caused a lot of problems. But I suppose that's probably what a lot of footballers have to go through is that decision, isn't it? Of your kids are going to school in one area. You can't just take them out and leave for a 6-month, 7-month deal. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
You say it's selfish, but do you think it was actually, from me listening to that story, and you might disagree, that's fine. Do you think it was not selfish actually, in the way that you maybe had no choice, although you reflect on it a little bit, not with sadness, but.
No, I agree. I do think there was part of me that felt I didn't have a choice, but at the same time, I think I could have played in the National League closer to home, and still picked up a decent wage. Hereford didn't have a lot of money anyway, so was it? I'm sitting there thinking, was it status? Was it trying to stay in the league for as long as I possibly could, or was it the fact that I might have been chasing the dragon a little bit in the terms of I had such a great feeling when it was going right that you're thinking, right, wherever you can get it, go work at it. And it's so strange. I got a friend of mine who I used to play with at Brentford, who he's literally been everywhere up and down the country. Played in Scotland, played in Newcastle, and he's from West London, but he's moved solidly 6 or 7 times. And his last move was in Scotland, and that was the move where he actually said, "That's it, I've had enough. I need to come home. My daughter's growing up. My wife is getting absolutely sick and tired of this. I need to come home." And, I think you do feel that sometimes. And obviously it wasn't going well at Hereford either. The club wasn't doing well. So you then start to think, was this the right decision? And but there is that element of that. You do think, did I have a choice? You need the money. You need the money coming in.
I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one.
One way.
Just very quick. I just want to just kind of pose something else in there, and this might be complete. Yeah, don't try to take it the wrong way. But do you think that when wives or partners of footballers get into relationships and that kind of stuff, do you think they know what the game is about? Because you're trying to establish yourself within the game. You see this as maybe like a last chance to kind of give the Football League a crack and try and give it a go. Is there maybe a part of you that's thinking, well, she knew what she signed up for? this is me, this is my lifestyle. Because I don't want that to come across in a horrible way, but for footballers, we've talked to several footballers, a lot recently. Yeah. You have to be selfish as a footballer in order to make it in the game.
Yeah.
So, it must be very difficult.
Yeah, it is. I think you're right in the sense of you do need to be selfish, but I think when you've got children as well, that throws a bigger spanner into the works. I think if it's just you and your missus, I think it's different because you haven't got the ties of finding good nurseries and schools and then recognising that after 6 months you have to take them out and put them in another nursery in another school in a completely different area. When it's just you and your partner, you can just travel around all over the place, kind of like nomads, and there is no connection. I think when you've got children and you're trying to be good parents as well, it is tough because if you're in a different part of the country, you haven't got the support network of your grandparents or the aunties and uncles that can help out. It's just you, your partner, and your kids. So there is that element. I mean, I try and sort of go by sort of saying I didn't have any regrets or anything like that. Hereford is one that I'm on the fence about because if I didn't go there, without being big-headed, I do think I could have got a National League side down south and still been able to enjoy the football. I just wouldn't be in the league. But, at the time, obviously, you're thinking, I need to stay in the league, get back. But realistically, I had 2 big injuries. I didn't take that into consideration. So
yeah, definitely. And then at the end of the season, then this is when really the non-league side of things then kickstarts again. You have spells at Ebbsfleet and Dover, and there was quite a few loan spells in between all of that. Ebbsfleet on paper looks like the most successful of those spell. What was it like in that particular season? Just talk me through that from your own personal perspective, on the pitch, off the pitch. Did it feel right? Were you comfortable?
Very comfortable, very comfortable. It's just a bloody roller coaster. Like I think, I scored 15 goals. I think I scored in that season, and we got relegated because we couldn't stop conceding goals. And it's like, on one hand, I think December I got Player of the Month for the league for scoring every game by 1 in November, sorry. And then, so I've got downstairs, I've got my Player of the Month award, and it's great. And then I look at it and think I got relegated that season. It blows my mind to think that kind of happened, but it did. Yeah. But then, I kind of left there, and we left there just before the takeover. So obviously they got taken over, didn't they? And we got put in, and we got letters in the post to say your services are no longer needed. And that really, I've never had to deal with that before, where there's been no communication, and in the middle of the summer you just get a letter through the post saying thanks for everything, take care. You don't usually have a meeting at the end of the season, and your manager tells you, or even the owner will tell you. But got a letter, and I thought left a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth, but never mind. Went over to Dover, and Dover was phenomenal, absolutely brilliant, such good fun. The players in there were I'm still really good friends with a lot of the players I played with in that team, and got promoted, ironically, at Ebbsfleet in the playoff.
I was just going to say that must have been a bit of a sweet moment to, not from, because Ebbsfleet as a club is, you enjoyed a good time on the pitch, but just the way that you were treated and left the club, that must have been a very truly satisfying moment to get the winner in the playoff final.
It was. I was very surprised with my reception when I got there because. I thought I scored a few. I was always a happy kind of guy around the club. I didn't really show any discontent, even though I wasn't happy with some of the goals we were conceding. And then when I arrived for that playoff final, it was a bit of a frosty reception. I had some fans that were really cool and really happy to see me, and then I had other fans that were like, "Oh, he's turned into a dirty player," and you hear these little murmurs and stuff like that. And it was just I don't know. It was just weird. But the game was horrific. I don't think anyone could put 2 to 3 passes together. But then, no one remembers it. I only remember the score. So I was absolutely buzzing to score. I didn't hold in any emotion. I just went mad. Like showed respect at the end of the game. I clapped all the Ebbsfleet fans as much as I could, and I just enjoyed it. Just enjoyed being part of it, to be completely honest.
Yeah, and then just kind of wrapping up the non-league part before we go into the coaching and what you're on now. That season after they get promoted, you then spent a few loan spells away, and one of those loan spells was Tonbridge Angels, and you touched upon the club and how much it kind of means to you. You were then there for a significant period of time.
Yeah.
Do you reflect on that period of time as the part where you felt maybe most at home, most settled as a player, or what was it like being at the club, for that period, for that long period of time? Because in non-league football, it doesn't happen very often.
I think at Tonbridge, I found my happy place again. Like
Right.
Brentford's that season, getting promoted, I was so happy, but obviously the injury kind of dampened it a bit for me.
Yeah.
Tonbridge is where I felt more like I was at Brentford. I felt like a big part of the club. I felt like a big part of the team. I felt really at home. Like, I think it's the same. It's a similar place to Brentford. You walk in, you say hello to the lady who's giving out the program. You say hi to the guy behind the bar. The groundsman, you have a couple of minutes conversation with him, asking how his day's been. That is the type of club that it was, and that's what's similar to Brentford. No animosity between the players. All the players are all together the whole way through. And when I got there, I think they were flirting with relegation as well. I think we made it out of relegation on like the second or last game of the season, and then after that, brought in some more players and scored a lot of goals there as well, which I'm really proud of. And yeah, that for me was, I'd have stayed there for another 5 years if I could have done.
Right. At the end of that very successful spell with them is when you then make the move and start doing coaching. Now, I think this is more kind of James's area of expertise than mine, but I suppose my initial question, before I know James is going to have 101 questions he wants to ask you about it, what then prompted you to then go, right, player coach is now something I want to do? What made you want to start doing the coaching thing to begin with?
I think I was kind of doing it a little bit before that, just without the title. And with Sittingbourne being in quite a weird place where they had a manager at the time who had no experience as a manager. I think he was like under 11s or under 12s manager at the time, who then all of a sudden kind of got thrust into the deep end of being manager of the club. And at that time when I was there, I was my senior player there, and I was trying to help him out as much as possible. Even sometimes doing the team talks, even sometimes talking tactics at half time and what people should do. And I kind of already had that role a little bit before even being given that effectively role. They had a manager, they had an assistant, but I kind of came in as a coach, I suppose.
Right.
And then season after that, new gaffer comes in, says to me straight away, I want you to be assistant. And I was like, yeah, I'm completely happy with that. Stepping away from the actual playing side. And it kind of fell into place a little bit.
Okay. Do you feel that when you then moved into, sorry, James, because I know you want to ask loads on this, but moving into the assistant manager role, when they, you said that kind of eased away from playing, do you feel that was the right time to stop playing, or do you feel like you probably could have maybe got a couple of other seasons out of yourself?
I think I probably could have got 1 or 2 out of me, but right. I think I was also at that point where, because of my age, because of the injuries as well, it was slowing me down. Obviously, getting a bit slower as well, as you do when you get older. I think I needed to be honest with myself. And even though I could say to you, I could have done another season, I know that a Saturday, Tuesday would have probably knocked me out. On Wednesday, I'd have been completely finished. And non-league is not rewarding in that sense. You have games back, and the pitches aren't great. The physio sometimes has to work, so they can't come. It's not like, the luxury of probably playing full-time football. And it's being honest and looking after the body as well. I think with you know, my children as well. I want to be able to play with them on a Sunday rather than being, you know, stuck on a sofa or in a wheelchair because I've played on the side. So it's being honest with myself and probably thinking to myself, right, do you know what? Chill out a little bit. Still get involved in training because you are going to miss it, but you know, just be smart in terms of the playing side.
Definitely. James, over to you. Go ask away, my friend. Ask away.
How early was it as a sort of as a player? Did you decide that? I know James touched on it then, that like the transition into it, but did you know quite early that that might be something you consider? Did you definitely not think you were going to get into it? Where did you feel like I might get into coaching one day, or I definitely want to get into coaching one day?
Probably at Tonbridge. I mean, Steve McKinn over at Tonbridge, the manager, is very much, him and Barry, the assistant, are very much giving responsibility to the senior players. You know, there's probably about 4 or 5 senior players over at Tonbridge, and there always has been throughout the years where you have that authority. If someone's not doing something right, you have complete authority to pull them up on it and find out what the hell's going on. And it's the same sort of thing with the young lads, helping them, nurturing them. You know, what do they need to work on? Picking them up when they're probably, their head's just completely gone. And you know, that's the type of manager that he was. So once I kind of had that responsibility, I realised I actually really liked it. I really liked the idea of pushing people on and seeing some of the young lads absolutely thrive when they probably didn't think they could do something. And that's kind of where that comes from. I think after that, I kind of thought to myself, you know what, I wouldn't mind doing this full time. It's stressful. Jesus, I didn't realise how stressful it is. But when it goes right, it's so good. So good when it goes.
Rewarding.
Yeah.
It is rewarding. I think that probably outweighs like you said, the tough side of it for sure.
Yeah,
do you think as a player you carried, because it's interesting for players that are listening in, players that are playing at the moment that might be thinking about it, or you've got players that are coaching, that is their job, so they're a semi-professional footballer and their job is coaching football some way. So do you think you had attributes as a player? I know it's hard to judge yourself, it's always hard. Do you think you had attributes sort of as a leader throughout your playing career?
I like to think so. Whether I would like to think so. I'd like to think so. I'd probably, you know, like you said, it's hard to judge yourself. You'd have to ask other people kind of what they thought. It's weird thinking about how much I evolved as a player from Brighton all the way through to Tonbridge, because it's like looking back at Brighton to Tonbridge, I feel like they're 2 completely different people. There's, you know, if I could probably go back and talk to the guy at Brighton, my career might have been completely different. But I suppose that is the evolution of football, isn't it? The other managers you play with, the other players you play with, they teach you probably where you're going and what you're doing. So, you know, I'd like to think I was a leader. I hope I was. You know, I hope I affected someone in a positive way. And that's kind of where I am.
What is it you'd have said to that guy? So you talk about yourself evolving. If you could now look back, even nowadays.
My Instagram questions away. Come
really?
on, James. No. Come on.
Apologise for that. You throw it out there yourself, really. What is it you would say back to yourself if you could have a chat with a lad that has signed at Brighton?
I'd tell him, you have no idea what an opportunity you have in your hands right now. Because at the time, I think this is probably what happens a little bit. So it's happened once or twice with non-league, where someone goes from non-league to the pro game and they go, made it, buzzing, absolutely, I've made it. I've been that one person out of 2,500 people that got chosen, got given a contract, and you realise, right, well, this doesn't feel like work because you're doing something that you have enjoyed doing for entertainment or for fun. And when you take the job aspect out of it, you really forget just how serious it is that you stick with it and you work as hard as you possibly can. And, you know, I actually spoke to a friend of mine who used to play for Cheltenham. He says exactly the same thing. He wishes he realised what an opportunity it was, because football doesn't last that long. So you need to cram probably 30 years of what work would be into 10 if you're lucky. And if you do it right, if you do it well, you can have a fantastic career that can set you up for the rest of your life. But at the same time, you know, there's people that have come out of the pro game, gone into non-league, gone into the pro game. They've done it for 18 months, and then they're back in the non-league game. So, yeah, I would tell myself, do you have any idea just how serious of an opportunity this is you have here? 100%.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's because we've asked similar questions to other guys that have been on, haven't we, James? And it's invariably pretty similar, to be fair. I think you have to look back at it in that way. But you do change. Everybody changes from how they were at that age. So although you might look back, I think we all probably look back tough on ourselves. Whatever it is you do, whatever industry, you look back at yourself as that age, and there's always going to be something you're going to pick up on. So, but it's nice. It's nice that you can do that positively.
Yeah, because we had Jamie Curtin on a couple of weeks back, and he said that he's more professional now than he was when he was at 18, 19 at Norwich in the academy. And that's why he's been able to continue and have the career that he's had, because he understands now how seriously he needs to take it. But it's just about who your coaches are, I suppose, at the time, and who's prepared to put their arm around you and teach you those kind of things. And like you said at the beginning, you have that. But maybe as you've gone on to certain clubs, the experiences that you've had, and then when you are then moving on, when that's then not there, it's then how do you deal with that as an individual? Because then you don't have that support mechanism on the pitch. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We've got some Instagram questions we'll finish up on, if that's all right. Because I just have to say, Twitter, you have let me down once again. Instagram, people have been firing questions in left, right, and centre, but Twitter.
I think Twitter's just for angry people at the moment. I just stay away from it. That's what I'd probably say.
Political views.
Yeah, I think that's
exactly. Yeah. So it was David's question that we answered earlier on. So we'll skip past that one. Bruno has asked, when do you feel you were at your happiest in football? I think we've briefly kind of talked about it. Was it the Brentfords? Would you say is your happiest time?
I'd probably say it was a Brentford, without a doubt. I think coming from a club, like I said, that, you know, openly doesn't really want you going to a club that does, and then thriving on top of that, I felt on top of the world, to be completely honest.
Definitely. We've got Bruno Goodell, who asks, without injuries and certain circumstances, realistically, where do you feel is the highest level of the game you could have reached?
It's a tough one, because I always think there's that element of luck involved as well. I think you need to be at the right club with the right players playing the right kind of football. I would like to say League One, but then at the same time, why are you not aiming higher? You know, why not the Championship? Why not the Premier League? You know, so I would, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, without the injuries or anything, I'm gonna say I could have played in the Prem, because at the end of the day, you know, with the facilities that I had playing full-time football, if I'd worked on myself even more so, and, you know, really grafted and didn't have the injuries, then who knows? You never know. And that's not, I hope that doesn't come across big time or anything. I just think at that age you need to be as ambitious as you possibly could. So, yeah.
Definitely. Good question on that one. We've got Jane, who says, who was your favourite manager to work under?
Do you know what? I'm going to say Andy Scott, only because it was in the league, but in terms of non-league, Steve McKim. Yeah,
definitely. We've got Lewis, who said, "Who is your what's the best teammate you've played with, off the pitch and on the pitch?"
Oh, Jesus.
Let's start with on the pitch. Who's the best player that you feel you've played with?
The best player I feel I've played with.
And I'm not going to include the Chelsea trial in this, because that's just an easy cop.
You know what? If it's going to be in regards to someone who went far and done really well, it'd probably be Andre Gray over at Shrewsbury when he was a youngster. When he was at Shrewsbury, he was raw. Very raw, rapid as anything. He was like a little bulldog. He would run about, he'd tackle you from everywhere. He really honed his craft when he was kind of like at Luton. And I remember Shrewsbury said to him, "You're not going to get anything here. You're not going to do very well." And he went on to Luton, done what he did. Then he went to Brentford, and then now he's in the Prem. It's the best player I probably played with at such a young age. He had attributes that, again, if the club had just worked on him and worked with him, then they probably could have been able to cash in properly. But
bit of a habit here with Shrewsbury, isn't there?
Well, it's
back then.
Well, back then, yeah. I mean, I'm sure things are different now, but I'd probably say played with, on the pitch. I thought Andre was great. I put Dean Hammond in there as well. In terms of his ability, yeah, he's I think pure talent and ability without a shadow of a doubt. Andre was a bit raw, and obviously honed his skill, but Dean was a leader, and his attributes were just ridiculous. Off the pitch, weird as it sounds, when I was off the pitch, when I actually was at Hereford for a little while, I stayed with the goalkeeper for Northampton at the minute. He's a Welsh lad, and he's just insane. But there's also
funny, I'm guessing.
Well, the thing is, he's just nuts, I can't even. But the other lad we stayed with was Tom Barkhazen, who plays for Derby.
Yes.
Derby Preston, sorry, not Derby, Preston.
Yeah.
And when we was a young lad, he was another funny guy. They're both young guys, living in a household together. I was the oldest, and it literally, like, I taught them how to wash up, taught them how to wash their stuff. But at the same time, I think they also reminded me of just how fun it can be, when you're that young and you're a young aspiring footballer. So yeah, there's quite a few of them. Ben Hamer is just crazy. They're getting another goalkeeper. All goalkeepers are insane, by the way. Can we just get that clear?
Have to be.
Every goalkeeper I've ever come across in the pro game is a flaming lunatic. So yeah, I'm going to put Ben Hamer in there in terms of off the pitch. I'm not telling you reasons why, but they're just goalkeepers.
We need to get a goalkeeper on the podcast by the sounds of things.
You might get shut down real quick, so be careful with some of the questions, mate, because they're different breeds altogether. I've not met one sane goalkeeper yet, not one.
We've got two more. So we've got Liam. Hang on 2 seconds. Let's go with Liam's one. What would you say was your best attribute when you were at your prime?
I'd probably say my heading ability. I think when I was at my prime, and I was very fearless as a player. I'd go up for the most ridiculous of headers. Maybe that probably led to my injury. To be fair, I think it was, goal kicks, corners, free kicks, everything. I was jumping. I was never one of those to shy away from, getting really stuck into a challenge or using my strength. And I think probably being fearless is probably one of them. Sometimes it led to you getting injured. Do you know what I mean? But I think that's probably what I took out of non-league. Because if you're not fearless in non-league, you don't last very long. I don't think.
You're going to get eaten alive, aren't you? Really?
Away with Billericay on a Tuesday night in December. If you haven't got the grit.
Away at Romford.
Away at Romford on a Tuesday. Like, if you haven't got that grit in your teeth, then you don't really last. I'd probably say that.
Final one. How do you reflect on your overall career in the game now? Looking back on everything, over the conversations we've had, how do you reflect on your career?
So I'm always overly critical about myself. And one thing I'd say, I think that I probably come back from adversity quite a lot. And I never look at, what ifs and stuff like that, but I would have loved to have seen what would have happened if just a couple of things were different, or if someone had a little chat in my ear, or someone had put an arm around and said, like, what are you doing? Or, just something like that. So I'm really, really grateful I'm proud. I'm proud of my career. You know, I've as weird as it sounds, there's people that I played football with at school that were so shocked to hear that I was a professional footballer, because when obviously we were playing in school, they thought they were better and stuff like that. So I'm proud and absolutely grateful, because I've managed to achieve something that not many people will be able to do, and that's win a promotion in the Football League.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, I'm always wondering every now and then how it could have been if certain things were different. However, absolutely, truly grateful to have, you know, the shirt and the medal in a frame in my living room, regardless of how old I get. I'll be able to look back on that and think, do you know what? Yeah, you did that. So yeah, just proud and grateful, I'd probably say.
Amazing. That's a great way to end the podcast. Nathan, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on, telling your story. It's been, I've totally been blown away by some of the stuff you're talking about, the adversities, the struggles, the highs, the lows. I think the more we're doing these, and James will agree on this, the more we're doing these and the more people we're talking to, we hear only certain parts of what happens from a club. We get told information that we want to hear from the clubs and from media, etc. But when you actually get down and talk to people, it's not as, you know, it's not as black and white as what it comes out across in print, you know.
Of course.
So, so no, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Definitely. But yeah, for you guys at home, if you have been watching the video from a YouTube perspective, make sure you give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this on all of the podcasting platforms, whatever they may be, Adam normally knows what they are, Apple, Spotify, all that kind of stuff like that. Subscribe, 5-star review. You know the drill by now. And until next time, as always on the show, adios.